Everybody, welcome to the second episode of 2022, and it is still a Happy New Year. I am your partially resolute host, Chew, coming to you live from the manhole, here to talk a little fatherhood and a little Dynasty fantasy football. And to those listeners out there, like, subscribe, review, wherever you listen to this or watching this, and follow me on Instagram at Father Dynasty, and let me know what you think. I always appreciate the feedback. So we are a little over 1 full week into the new year, and I, in fact, did already squander about 50% of my New Year's resolution. I did have a soda, did have a Mountain Dew, had to make it worth it, but have failed to have alcohol, which has also been tough, but I've stuck with that. So I think it's the small victories at this point. I'll keep that going as long as I possibly can. If I can make it through January, I think they'd be pretty good. On this week's episode, I'm going to take a look at Unbecoming Your Parents, which is the Progressive commercial, but I have my own version where I look back at it's my fatherly self versus my college self. And I'm also going to take a look at the formation of each of my fandoms of my favorite sports teams. So I'd say by now everyone has probably seen one of, if not many of, the Progressive commercials of Unbecoming Your Parents. And I know initially it was each of the individual characters would have their own scenarios. Then they eventually created the newest part, which is Dr. Rick, Unbecoming Your Parents. And he's kind of throwing the seminars of having the parents come, or the people come, and kind of advising them on how to not become their parents or unbecome their parents. And this segment is kind of my own little twist on it of comparing myself now versus my college self, say 10 or 10 plus years ago. And kind of just comparing two different situations of kind of how I see things now versus how they were then. The first one, which I think is especially true for anyone who is a homeowner now, I know the air filter sizes of my house much better than I do the maps of the latest Call of Duty. And I think the college version of myself would be embarrassed by that. And if you were wondering, upstairs it's 2024-1 and downstairs it's 1625-1. And I can tell you, my brother-in-law got me the newest Call of Duty Vanguard, for Xbox this Christmas, and I still don't have a great feeling on the maps at this point. I'm somewhat blindly running around playing multiplayer, and even in the previous game that Black Ops Cold War, I played it a decent amount, as much as a dad can, I guess, but I still felt like I didn't know the maps incredibly well, and it's just funny to think of kind of the perspective on everything of. So this would be the third house that my wife and I have owned. So knowing something like that, which has changed through each of the houses, at least to some degree, is pretty interesting. And thinking back to the college days of, probably playing Call of Duty for a number of hours each day, and probably knowing the maps like the back of my hand. Probably between that and back in high school, Gears of War, I would say the college me was probably just dependent upon the landlord to be able to come in and change the air filter. And also it's probably different too, because back then, if it was not having a dog or any pets, that's much different than now having 2 dogs and a cat on hardwood floors and dealing with how all that's going to go, in terms of the amount of hair and dust and everything that you get. And that was me slipping into becoming my parents as I just got into a deeper explanation of air filters in houses. So the next one is going from only tucking in my shirt to appease the starter at a golf course to tucking in a non-dress shirt doing yard work. And probably more for functionality than anything. But I think, back to the days of, I played golf in high school, like on the golf team. So I was used to that, but it's kind of funny to think of, the only times, back high school, college and all that was, if you're going on a golf course or, nice restaurant or whatever. And it's just, for my day-to-day work now, I do tuck in my shirt, but it's funny to think that even in a non-work setting, doing yard work, something like that, I will tuck my shirt in, which the origin of me consistently tucking my shirt and doing yard work was as a grown man getting riddled with poison ivy in my forearms. And I know that I can deal with a good amount of pain, but just the agony and annoyance of having poison ivy up and down both of my forearms was just unbearable. I was taking out a juniper bush in the front yard, and I think I was fully, tucked in, pants, socks, long sleeve shirt. And I think when I was going through it, for some reason, it didn't seem as though that there was a good amount of poison ivy on it. For whatever reason, I thought it was okay if I took the long sleeve shirt off and then kept going. So the only thing that was exposed was my forearms. And that within a day and a half, the poison ivy got crazy. And I think I ended up waiting a little bit too long to get steroids on it, or steroids to help improve it. And it already kind of had run its course, so I had to kind of just still wait it out, but that was the worst. So getting that as a grumpy old 30-year-old was not good. Now, this is one that I know they've done in the commercial before, and I think it was the guy who does the jalapeno poppers. I think he did this one. It was groaning when I stand up as if I'm in the squat rack hitting a PR. So if I remember correctly, it was this character simply just standing up from sitting in a chair and kind of making the dad groan. I would say that that's incredibly true. Usually more so if I'm doing potty training with my son now, if it's just hunched in that position, then trying to stand up from there, probably some knees cracking, then me making an audible groan. And while I was never an absolute gym rat in my younger years, I would say I definitely could work out with more frequency and definitely bounce back a lot quicker than I do nowadays. So this is a big one that I would say parents in general, regardless of whether you have one or multiple probably would be even more significant, is true. So knowing the theme songs to kids shows like Blue's Clues and Team Umizoomi and Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood better than any of the current top 10 rap songs. And I'm a fan of rap, but trying to make the time to keep up with everything, I'll catch stuff here and there. But it's funny, when these songs come on and I start singing them to my son, I'll sing them and I probably know the entire song, if not most of it. And it's adorable because he'll sing it and you can see him following along and everything, but it'll be like every third word, he'll just kind of say it and just kind of be waiting. But the bad thing is if the TV's not on, there's, no noise or no anything like that, I'll be working on something entirely by myself and I'll start talking like Blue. Or I'll just talk about my belly screen. And some of those references might be lost on you, but I do implore you to watch at least one episode of Blue's Clues and Team Umizoomi, and you will very quickly get what I'm saying there. But yeah, so my references have gone from my favorite rap songs. I think back in college, it was probably Lil Wayne, Wiz Khalifa, and all that, and now it's Blue's Clues and Team Umizoomi. So things change there. So I do a reasonably good job at keeping up with this now, but it's whether I'm following the sports teams well enough to know how they're doing, and then by the time they make the playoffs, just finding out who's still on the roster. I've kind of fallen into that a little bit with certainly with baseball, although it's a very long season. It's not going to watch every single game, but certainly watch the big ones and kind of see the big transactions and all that sort of stuff. But it's funny, just kind of like the music one that I had just mentioned, you have less time for it. So it's not being as keyed in on it, all that stuff that's going on there. That segues pretty seamlessly into talking about my favorite sports teams and kind of how I got into each of those teams. So the first one, as you can see, got a tattoo that I won't show anybody else. We got that one there. We got a little Red Sox thing up there. Red Sox thing right there. Red Sox right there. Got an extra hat just in case. So yeah, needless to say, I'm a Red Sox fan. Much to my family's chagrin, as my family's from upstate New York. So I do have an uncle and a couple of cousins, I think, that are Red Sox fans, but everyone else is a Yankees fan, so not a huge fan of me being a Red Sox fan. Actually, the story of me getting my tattoo was I was going to get it. I waited a full year. I think I was 19 when I got it. So I waited a full year to figure out if it was the smart thing to do, if I really wanted it, and decided I wanted it. So when I went to go do it, told my mom, and as a Yankees fan, she said, "I hope it looks good, but I hope it hurts like hell." And didn't hurt that bad, but I think it looks pretty good. So being a Red Sox fan, it kind of started in 2000. So I was a huge Manny Ramirez fan, and I'm not going to say I was ever good at baseball, but I was a big fan of his. He was on the Indians. I had a great aunt who lived in Cleveland, or just outside of Cleveland. So got to visit her a good amount when I was younger. So Manny Ramirez was on the team. He was doing well, young stud outfielder. And in 2000, I think it was later, like October or so, or no, December of 2000, Manny Ramirez got traded to the Red Sox. And so I followed him over to the Red Sox. And of course, that was still a couple of years before they broke the curse. Ever since Manny went over there, I've been a huge fan of the Red Sox and still am to this day. And it was funny when I was, before I got the tattoo, and even once I got it, it's kind of funny when people mention, what if you aren't a fan of them anymore? Or this was even funnier. What if the team like changed their name or moved out of Boston? I'm like, I mean, it's kind of like synonymous with, the New York Yankees and all that. It's like, I mean, if the Red Sox moved out of Boston, I'm likely well gone from this earth. So I'm not too concerned about that. So basketball, I don't follow it as much as I used to. And ironically, because my team is not a very good one. I'm a New York Knicks fan, which is funny because of all of the New York teams that I could have picked. Obviously, again, like I said, my family's from upstate New York. This, maybe aside from the Mets, would be one of the worst teams to have picked in terms of just what they've accomplished. And growing up, Patrick Ewing, John Starks, all those guys, Charles Oakley, Mark Jackson, a little bit before my time, but kind of watched them as I was growing up, certainly when it would be visiting my family, always around the holidays and stuff too. And like Christmas and watching some of those games. I've yet to get to go to Madison Square Garden, but I would love to. And referring back to my last one, I have gotten to go to Fenway Park thanks to my wife. She planned everything, and I got to go to Boston. That was awesome. That was a great trip that we got to do. And a big thing, kind of a thing back to my childhood. So Stephon Marbury. So when he got traded to the Knicks in like 2003 or 2004, I was a big fan of his. I think he was on the Nets before that. And I don't know if anyone's going to understand this reference, but Stephen Barry's, which was, what's the best way to explain Stephen Barry's? So they were a retailer, like, I don't even know if they had pants. I think it's mostly just graphic t-shirts, that kind of thing. Mostly somewhat inappropriate ones. So I think two of the ones that I can remember that I'd gotten there before, it was beer. Like it was like a guy look like from like the 50s or 60s, like just like a caricature, or not a caricature, a character from like the 60s, and like a thumbs up thing. And he was saying beer helping ugly people have sex since whatever the year was. And the other one I had, which I never got in trouble for this in school, which I was surprised because I wore this to school. It had a little puma right here, like just the normal puma. And in the same font as it would say puma, it said hung. And the puma had an extra little leg, if you get what I'm saying. And I don't fully know why I never got in trouble with that. I actually am pretty sure I had an assistant principal in high school compliment the shirt, like, oh, that's cool. And they didn't say, oh, that's cool, it says hung and it's a puma with another leg. I think they didn't understand what it meant. I think they just thought it was a puma shirt. And it's like, oh, that's cool. So that was pretty funny. But in regards to Stephen Barry's, the now defunct Stephen Barry's, I think they went bankrupt in like 2009, because that's when I graduated. Okay, that's what it was. So that was a tough day for me when they went out of business. But Stephon Marbury, so he sold Starberries, which were his shoes, that, I mean, they were $15, I want to say. And he sold those, let's see. So they were first sold in September of 2006. So it was rec basketball. I was never good enough to play any sort of basketball other than that. And getting those $15 shoes, it was funny because it was more just kind of like the cool thing of saying I have Starberries. And it's not like a lot of stuff now where it's like, I remember back when I was in high school, it was like getting Nike Shocks, because you can get like the team color Nike Shocks. You can get them whatever color. Any of the stuff now, like any of like LeBron shoes or Steph Curry shoes or whatever. My cool thing was getting the $15 Starberries. And if I remember correctly, I don't remember anyone else that I knew getting them. I don't know if I was ahead of the curve, or I was on my own separate curve that no one else wanted to deal with. But yes, that's my New York Knicks experience. Next is, I'm not a big hockey guy. I was into it more, I think, when I was younger. And we actually, here in my hometown, we do have a hockey team. We've had 3, this would be our 3rd hockey team, minor league team that we've had. When I was younger, it was the Roanoke Express, and that was huge. We'd love to go to games. It's awesome. And since then, there was one other team, then they left. One other team now, and that's the Rail Yard Dogs, which I've only been to a handful of games since they've become that. But in terms of my hockey affiliation, all these teams are, of course, in different cities. This one is the Detroit Red Wings. So my brother's godmother, who basically aunt, we call her aunt, she's from Michigan, so I kind of just globbed onto the Red Wings, just growing up. And obviously, around that time when I was growing up, the Red Wings were an incredible team. So you could say I just kind of globbed onto them because they were good. My only kind of understanding of sports teams, if I wasn't really following it when I was younger, was just kind of playing video games. So playing like the NHL video games on Sega, I want to say. Playing with the teams, it was like my main guy was Nicholas Lindstrom. He was awesome. We got, Chris Osgood was the goalkeeper, I want to say. Steve Weiserman was the center. He was there for a while, I thought. Chris Chelios. I think later was Todd Bertuzzi. Nicholas Cronwall. Brendan Shanahan? Yes, I mean, I know back then they had a stacked team, and I think, as far as I understand it now, I think they're going through a bit of a rebuild and that sort of thing. But the only thing that I really, growing up, it was playing like Face Off 99 for PlayStation. That was a huge thing for me. Love playing that game. Just, you could do crazy hits on that one. But other than that, I mean, watching playoff hockey, it's incredible. It's a great sport to watch in the playoffs. But other than that, didn't really follow it too much. So my favorite sport to play was soccer. Played that all through school, middle school, high school. Played a little bit of travel, not too much. And it was growing up going to soccer camps, and I guess I, of course, globbed onto another team that was very good. But when I was younger, my favorite player was Samuel Eto'o, and at the time, he was the forward for Barcelona. So that was my favorite team. And obviously, Messi, incredible player. Puyol, Xavi, Ronaldinho for a short spell. And there's no shortage of studs that either were on Barcelona or even still are on there today. And it's cool to see Xavi come back to manage the squad. But a great team to watch. I have a number of, I have a Samuel Eto'o jersey. I have 3 Messi jerseys. So yeah, probably aside from the Knicks, most of my teams have had stretches of pretty good runs, at least certainly when I like them to start. I guess actually aside from the Red Sox, when I started liking them, they were kind of on the up and up. And last but not least is the Carolina Panthers. And so my kind of start with them, so they were a new team. I think it was 95 was their first year. And another game I like to play was NFL Blitz. So that was first in 97, the first NFL Blitz they made. And I think this wasn't until a couple years later for the roster, but I liked playing. It was Kerry Collins, not a great player, but he was their quarterback. Timbiaka Patuka, the best name ever in football. Wesley Walls, Musin Muhammad. Was on defense. Was it Sam Mills, Mike Minter, Julius Peppers eventually? So an incredible team. And I mean, just a super fun game to play. So that was kind of the origins of that. And, being in Virginia, you have Richmond for a lot of farm teams. And here in Salem, we do have actually the affiliate for the Red Sox, the Salem Red Sox. It's the single A affiliate. And Lynchburg has a baseball team. Obviously, DC. It's not Virginia, but so Carolina Panthers were actually, I think, the closest team, or maybe the Redskins. Sorry, the Washington football team are maybe the closest football team to me. Looking at the Panthers going forward, as this is a Dynasty Fantasy Football podcast, just looking at the implications of how they're ending their season. Not doing too well. And I know it'll be a top 8 pick for sure. I guess I got to see where everything else shakes out, but it could be as good as top 5 or top 6, I want to say. And from what I was hearing, apparently Matt Rule is safe, although I know the firing of Joe Brady pretty mid-season. It looks like Rule's job may hinge on him getting a good OC. And I don't know if that means like if he hires one that's not good enough, then Rule's fired, or they kind of let him go through one more season and then kind of see how that goes. No, they gave him an absurd, it was like a 7-year contract for Rule. Revenues came in from college, so they're kind of stuck with it. And speaking of stuck with it, I mean, Christian McCaffrey, incredible player. It seems like just a great dude, and it's a bummer that he's kind of just another cautionary tale, seemingly, of not paying running backs kind of once they get to that certain age, that certain point, which, I mean, he's not old, but he was so much of the offense for his first couple of years. And I think the 1 year before the injury started, like 2 years ago, the injuries started piling up. It was a 4-year, $64 million extension that was in last April. And he's not even an unrestricted free agent until 2026. So and this is all per Spot Track. So his cap hit from 2022 to 2025 is $14 million, $18 million, $18 million, $14 million. And that's rounded. So give or take. His dead cap doesn't even drop below $10 million until 2024 when it's $7 million. So I heard that they were apparently going to be open to shopping him in the offseason. I don't know what they're going to do with that. Like, I don't know how on earth you could move that. And I mean, he's unbelievably talented. So it's not like you're moving a bad player. Not at all. But that's going to be tough to move. And the QB situation is just, I mean, Sam Darnold, I have him in Dynasty. One of the 3 Panthers I have on one of my Dynasty teams. I was hoping he would do, he started off, I think it was the 3 or 4 games, started off doing very well. And I mean, I don't know if it was the offense. I don't know if it was Darnold. I don't know what it was. I know the O-line's terrible. Some of the throws he makes and decisions is just, I watch it and I'm like, it's just really small stuff. And I'm like, how do you miss that throw? Or how do you, like, why was that the decision that you made? And some of it doesn't even look too erratic. It's just like, I don't know where that came from. But then he makes plenty of, he does have good athleticism, makes some good throws. I don't know if it's going to be Darnold. I don't know if it's going to be Newton. Are they going to get a veteran QB in there? Apparently at the middle of the season before the deadline, it was going to be possibly Deshaun Watson. They didn't even need him to clear all of they cleared 18 of the 22 civil charges. And that was enough for the Panthers. They apparently were like, yeah, it's fine. We'll do it anyway. And Deshaun said, no, I don't want to go to Carolina. And so I don't know if that's going to work out in the offseason. I don't know if they're going to draft one of Pickett, Corral, or Willis. They may. I could see them doing that, but I know they don't have a second this upcoming year because that was part of the Darnold trade that they traded their second. And I think they don't have a third either. So it's the first and then 4th, 5th, 6th, all that. So I don't know what they're going to do. And yeah, like I said, I have Darnold in Dynasty and then Terrace Marshall and Tommy Tremble. 2 young guys, 2 rookies. Terrace Marshall was one. I think I drafted him. No, I think either I drafted him or I traded him for him earlier. Probably traded him away and then got him back again. Then Tommy Tremble, got him as a throw-in. He has been used pretty interestingly in the offense, and I think he's been kind of his hype going through college. Uber athletic guy, willing blocker, would do anything. And how they've used him, I think his first touchdown was a rushing touchdown in the red zone. And he seemingly, from what he's done, I don't think he's been used with a huge volume in the offense as a pass catcher, but seems like he could grow into that role. And I think Ian Thomas never really turned out to be anything, so I don't think that's threatening his job. That is the origin of my sports teams, and that's my look on the Panthers for this year and next year and going forward. So this week was a bit of a mishmash. It was kind of some fatherhood, kind of some dynasty, but kind of more centered in just the fatherhood, childhood kind of thing, and just sports in general. I know this is the official end of the regular season, and dynasty offseason can be exciting, but you kind of have to make it exciting, kind of have to be involved and invested in that. So we're looking into more information as we evaluate more of these rookies coming up with the NFL draft, looking to see as the playoffs ensue, the real NFL playoffs, how players are looking, maybe positioned for next year, some veterans and some guys that are going to be free agents, what their situation's looking like and where they could be going. We'll be looking to dive more into that. And like I said at the top, like, subscribe, review. Let me know what you think. Hit me up on Instagram at Father Dynasty. I'd appreciate any feedback. and all those Dynasty daddies out there.